So this is a model of one of the really early TVs with like a 6-inch screen, 6-inch black and white. So everything was black and white at the beginning with Philo Farnsworth's technology. And you can see the speaker for the sound on the right there. And as you can see here from this slide, the first color broadcast, June 25th, 1951. And you can see how 1965 NBC is all color with the peacock. Remember, with the colored feathers was the tail feathers was the emblem for NBC because of its all color. 1971, 48% of households have color TV. They're watching Superman. And cable. So the first little outlier of cable was this fellow who just did it locally to try to sell more TVs. A community antenna television system, CATV, interesting. And then this is more what the world looks like today, unfortunately. You can see the apartment buildings around New York City or anywhere else have these cables literally many times draping all over the buildings if they're not routed internally. Coaxial cable was the first, was a copper wire cable, and now we're on fiber optic cable like this. But let me just go back. This, oh my goodness, this is like Philo Farnsworth's diagram. So this is shows how at the head end gets the signal, all the cable content at the head end in the upper left hand corner of this page. And there's a distribution hub that sends the signal out, and you can see eventually it's going through optical nodes and amplifiers. A trunk line amplifier, trunk line being a big line, and then you have smaller lines with amplifiers. In other words, they're boosting the signal going through the cables before they get to the homes. Okay. What did cable do? Well, in the early days of TV, with the networks dominating, you really only had, 3 networks, mainly ABC, NBC, and CBS. And an advertiser could buy an ad that ran at the same time on all 3 networks and reach 80% of the TV watching households in the U.S. It was called a roadblock to do that. But cable opened the way for dozens and even hundreds of different channels to be offered over the cable. HBO started a premium cable channel, Home Box Office, it's a great name, and it's just a premium channel, eroded the broadcaster's profits, and then more and more moves. So now pretty much everything is fiber optic cable. There's an early HBO logo. Time Incorporated, Time Life, as you see here, originated HBO, which is pretty amazing. So we've looked at kind of what it is. We talked a little bit, I'm just going back here, about the technology and how it was broadcast over the air, right, to antennas, and now is on cable, fiber optic cable. So that's kind of the hardware story. So let's go back now and get a little more into the history of TV. Importantly, this is a visual we've looked at a bunch of times. This is people looking at a radio. For some reason, there's nothing much to see, but they're all looking at it anyway. And what happened was, after World War II, the television, Philo Farnsworth's invention, first those little 6-inch screens, and then eventually larger black and white screens, television replaced the radio, and basically what happened is all these radio programs just flipped over to TV. They just cast actors that had the right appearance, and took the same script writers and the same shows, the same characters, and put a visual to them. Shot them on sets, etc. And lots of the original TV production was done in the New York area, just like it was with films, but ended up in Hollywood, around and as part of really the movie business, kind of TV and movies all kind of being the shows produced in California. They also took a lot of the advertisers, national advertisers for radio, those sponsors, and took them over to the TV shows. So radio lost national advertising and eventually had a second life, as we saw in the last presentation, because of automobiles, transistor radios, etc. So TV, so that's what happened with radio. We saw that in the last slide. All television genres begin, from the soap opera to the game show and radio. So President Roosevelt broadcast the 1939 World's Fair from NBC's experimental TV station. And you can see 1941 is during World War II. There's a commercial station from NBC and CBS. CBS is the radio network. Columbia Business Systems, run by William Paley. Each have a station in New York City. 6 stations on the air in 1946, right after the World War. 1948, 4 television networks, 128 stations. Begin a full primetime schedule 7 days a week, 1948. Television's first superstar was this fellow Milton Berle, whose real name was Mendel Berlinger. He ran a sponsored TV show called the Texaco Star Theater from 1948 to 1956. It was basically a vaudeville show with a whole theater with curtains in the set and a live studio audience. And you can see that Milton Berle was a big reason that went from 191,000 to 21 million TVs by 1956 in 8 years. We're going to stop and take a look at a little segment of Milton Berle, of his TV show.